Hello, guys. Welcome back. So, we've talked a lot about how flight over people is a restriction that is hard to get waived, but it can be done. And ways to get the waiver to fly over people is to prove that your drone is safe, have a system that is autonomous, that if something was to happen, your drone can be brought to the ground safely without undue risk of crashing into people and stuff like that. It's primarily a big deal and hard to do because of all the pre 2015 drones that didn't have very good GPS systems that were prone to flyaways, the cheap Walmart drones before 2015. Not saying that Walmart's drones are cheap. That's just a nickel word. Um, but anyway, your cheaper drones that didn't have the GPS systems and stuff, you'd take off, they'd lose signal, and they just fly away from the controller, and you couldn't catch them. And they were landing in random people's yards, in the parking lots of police departments, all sorts of stuff like that, which wasn't good for anybody. So a way to prove that your drone is going to be safe if if it if it loses signal or if a motor goes out, it's not just going to spin out of control and fly wherever on three motors, is to have a parachute system. So what we've got now is uh, except it keeps falling over, we've got a Parazero parachute system. It's called the SafeAir for Mavic. It is a low altitude autonomous parachute based safety system. And we've got the parachute system here, and then this funky little thing is a piece called the ASTM kit, um, which is the special piece that makes it to where we are able to fly. So the parachute itself is relatively inexpensive, but the ASTM kit, which also includes paperwork that we'll discuss in a minute, um, is fairly expensive. But that's the piece that gets you to where you can pass or to be granted waivers for Part 107 flying over people. With just the parachute system, basically you just have something that's protecting your drone, which Mavics are $2,000 to $4,000, depending on which Mavic you have. So I mean, for the cost, it might be worth it to buy one just to protect your drone, protect your asset, so to speak. With the parachute deployed, the average rate of descent for your Mavic is going to be about 12.8 feet per second. And then your minimum flight altitude, as defined by the ASTM, is going to be 62.7 feet. So basically, what they found in all their tests when they were testing this is the average amount it would fall when the parachute was deployed before it actually caught the force of the drone, caught the weight of the drone, and started slowing it down, is it would fall about 30 feet. So to be safe, they took that average and they doubled it, added in a little bit of extra for some margin of error, and came up with 62.7 feet as the minimum flight altitude for the drone to be effective. So the the par the Parazero parachute deployment system, it'll open in a fraction of a second, even at zero speed. So you can have it sitting on the ground, and the parachute is still going to come out and do its thing. I don't know why I cannot get that to stand up now. So we'll do that. It's got autonomous emergency identification and activation capabilities. What that means is it, on its own, it can figure out that something is wrong. The drone is entering a crisis state or a state of emergency, and it will self-activate the parachute. So once it senses that a motor has stopped or all the motors have stopped, it'll automatically deploy the parachute, and cause all motors to cease, because it's got electromechanic flight termination system. Um, this piece right here in the ASTM, this little thing that plugs into it, is an audio warning buzzer, and that is to alert bystanders of a falling drone. So if you're flying your drone out over a crowd of people at a music festival, football game, if you've got the permissions to do so, if your drone starts to fall out of the sky, this little buzzer is going to tell people, hey, there's a drone coming down. It's not going to say that. It's just going to buzz, and then people will be like, what is that buzzing? And they'll see a drone falling from the sky. So they'll have plenty of notice to get out of the way. Another thing with the ASTM kit is, without the ASTM kit, it's fully autonomous. But with the ASTM kit, you get the ability to manually trigger the parachute. So if it's in a situation where you think you might be about to have an issue, or you just get uncomfortable, or let's say it gets out of your line of sight accidentally, and you don't know what to do because you're in an area you're unfamiliar with, and realistically it might be unsafe to fly the drone back to where you're at, you can deploy the parachute remotely, and it's going to cut the power off to your motors so they'll stop spinning. It's going to deploy the chute, and it's going to make its way down to the ground, and you can use your controller to locate your drone if you don't locate it while it's on its way down, and the buzzer will be going off, so you'll have that extra hint as to where the drone is, like that. The parachute system itself also has data logs, kind of like a black box for a manned aircraft, like a commercial airline might have, which can be accessed via the computer desktop application. So again, it's designed to deploy instantaneously. The way it does that is it's got a very powerful spring system, and so once it deploys, the spring pushes through. The stops for the spring move back. The spring pushes through the top, pushes the parachute out, and with the momentum and force that the parachute's coming out, it'll expand, catch the wind, and have a full deployment. So with that, when you're carrying around the system, you've got to be careful because any sudden bumps or drops, or any damage caused to the casing will cause it not to seal right, and you could have an inadvertent deployment, which if you're right here with it real close to your face, if I was to turn it to my face and it deployed, that would be really bad for me. Just saying. So we will move on from that, though, because no one wants to think about that. So a few things that come in the package, just to go over some of the components. We've got the parachute system and the connected safety catch. So down here on the bottom, it's got this nifty little remove before flight label. So you'll pull that out before you go, and that gives the spring the ability to do what it does. You can see the spring right in here, and it attaches to the drone by this piece right here wrapping around the drone, coming over to the metal part that opens up, and then this will clamp down, and the way it's designed, it'll add pressure to it to keep it tight. So you don't want it to get it too tight because that could cause issues. You don't want it to be too loose because that will also cause issues, but it is made for a Mavic, so it will fit a Mavic like it needs to. Some other things that come in the package are a safety insert, which is this guy. It also has a remove before flight. This is more or less for when you're not using it as an ASTM kit. This is to block the spring so you can repack the drone after you've deployed it. So if you're just using it for your own personal use, more or less is like an equipment protection deal. You can deploy the parachute and repack it uh, on your own. But with the ASTM kit, since you're using it as a professional deal, if you deploy your chute, you've got to send it back to Parazero so they can pretty much do a certified repacking. So you're covered under your warranties and under your waiver because it's certified equipment at that point. It's not something that's been tampered with. You also get three of these, which those are placement stamps, and that is how the parachute mounts to the Mavic. It'll lock in on there, and that holds it to the Mavic initially, and then the strap, the safety catch, makes it a more stable connection. It's kind of just a backup redundancy type thing. There's not really a lot of room for me to show you on here, but it comes with a placement tool. So to use that, you end up, and that's for the safety or the placement stamps right here. So you'll take the motors or the rotors, the propellers off of your Mavic, fold the arms out, and then you'll place this where these holes are. You'll place the holes into those propeller mounts. Make sure this side is facing the camera. Stick that on there, and then that placement stamp will fit right into that spot and mount to your drone via the 3M adhesive that they have so conveniently placed in the back. So that's how that works. It also includes a charging cable, a USB-C charging cable, so you can keep this charged up. So that's kind of the basics on what is in that package, along with the ASTM package. A little bit more about the system itself. I'll move some of this stuff out of the way so my camera is a little bit more useful. So you got your parachute over here well, that's not good. Over here on the side, you've got the USB-C port right there. Right beside it, you have a LED light, which will change various colors depending on the status of the system. You have a system button. Down here is the ASTM port, and that is where you'll plug in the ASTM. So it'll plug in right there. And then over here on this side is the on-off switch right here. So that's how that works. So as I mentioned earlier, you can do a manual deployment of the parachute, but that requires additional equipment to do a manual deploy. So you'll need basically a receiver and a transmitter. Y'all should be kind of familiar with that. At least my second and third year guys and gals will be kind of familiar with that from building the flame wheel kits. I have the Parazero transmitter and receiver, so this itty bitty box is the receiver that plugs in to the ASTM kit as well. So that'll plug into that, and then your horn plugs into the parachute system. So you've got that piece, and then it's got this nifty little controller that'll clip onto your belt, so it's always ready to go. And then a separate antenna that screws into it right there. So it's got that, and it's a real simple transmitter remote, where it just has a button that you push to send out the deploy message. So you're trying to do safety, you're trying to do rapid, you want to keep it simple, so there's less to get confused with. You could probably buy a transmitter and get it programmed to the same frequency as, or receiver, and get it programmed to the same frequency as your Mavic controller, and use one of the extra buttons, one of the accessory buttons on the controller to send that signal. But that could cause more chaos than, not necessarily cause chaos, it just might cause confusion in the spur of the moment because there are so many buttons on the remote. And this way you've got a dedicated device with a dedicated button to deploy that. You also have to charge this, so it's got a micro USB charger. So that, in a nutshell, that is the components and kind of the basis of the parachute system. I pretty well covered that. We'll go through and mount it later. But since we have the ASTM kit, we're not going to do any practice deployments because we'll have to send it back off, and it took a month for it to ship here. Of course, with things going like it is, it takes anything a month to ship anywhere. So there's that. But if you want to see videos about it, or if you want to look any more into it, you can go to Parazero.com. I'm not sure where this is going to focus in at, but Parazero is the name, and you can look at all sorts of stuff on there. You can go Parazero.com/Mavic or /ASTM. And that'll take you to all the manuals, all the videos about it. You'll be able to watch deployments. You might be able to YouTube Parazero or drone deployments, drone parachute deployments, and find some videos about it that way. It's kind of cool to see, but that pretty much boils down what I've got for you tonight. As far as what the kit contains, what it does, and all that. So again, if you have any questions or need help with anything, let me know. You can call, text, or email me. Also, I hope your other classes are going well. If there's anything I can do for you, whether it's my class, another class, anything like that, let me know. I'm here to help. Like I said, I miss y'all. I hate not being in the classroom because it's a lot more fun there, and you can actually get your hands on this and see it. But one day we'll get there. So until next time, we'll see you.